Hey family, I had an ill-informed white person comment under one of my videos stating that, didn't you know that in 1830 there were 3,775 black people, free blacks who owned slaves? First of all, for this person to point that out, he's trying to be petty, and he was like, well, teach about that then. So I definitely will. But the reason for why they had those slaves, many of them, the majority who were free to own them, is not what you think. Let's jump into it. By 1830, approximately 3,775 free black people owned 12,760 slaves in the United States, according to U.S. Census. But most of these slave holders, they were concentrated in like Louisiana, South Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. I'm sure other states had them as well, but the majority were concentrated there. But this is what's most interesting. The reason why free blacks owned slaves. 1, family protection and nominal slavery. Bottom line, the most common reason free black people owned slaves was to protect their family members. They protect them from the harsh realities of the legal system. Many free black individuals legally purchased their wives, their enslaved spouses, their enslaved children, and other relatives, but were not allowed to basically, the word is manumit or free them due to restrictive state laws. So you see, for those of you white people who want to say, well, you all own slaves, first of all, out of the millions of white people who owned slaves between 1619 and 1865, there were only 3,775. That's very small. Compare the numbers, 3,775 compared to millions of white folk who owned slaves over that time frame. You do the math. Wouldn't you, if you were a free black, if you had gotten free, wouldn't you come back and purchase? Because he couldn't just go, you got to remember, he couldn't just go and say, give this person to me, because slavery was still in the works. So he purchased, and it looked as though, oh, those are just slaves. Treat them just like they would treat the slaves on Thomas Jefferson's plantation or Monticello or wherever. No. Again, what a wise thing to do. What a blessing that you were able to buy back your spouse that you may not have seen, or your children who were snatched and taken from you. You were able to buy them back. What a blessing. Let me give you an example. In North Carolina and Virginia, laws required freed slaves to leave the state within a year, making legal ownership the only way to keep families together. Some free black people kept their relatives enslaved for their protection, especially to prevent them from being re-enslaved by whites under harsh laws. If you're going to be a slave, I purchase you as my mama, my daddy, my child, and you are my slave legally. You understand? In comparison to going on to Billy Bob's plantation, where he's white and he's cruel and he's the son of a gun. You understand? Second reason why some free blacks own slaves: economic and social status. Come on now, it's just human nature. And again, like I told you, during slavery, not all white people were bad. And also during these years, not all black people were good. Everybody has an ego in some way or another. So I'm not going to deny that in some of these black plantations, that I'm sure some harsh things were going on. But then again, studies are showing that they weren't always as harsh as what the whites had. Let's keep moving on about economic though. A smaller portion of free black slave owners engaged in slavery as a business venture. Much like white slaveholders, some sought to integrate into the southern plantation economy using slave labor for profit. In cities such as New Orleans and Charleston, free black elites, often mixed race Creoles, often owned slaves and engaged in trade, skilled labor, and plantation management. It's just what it was. Come on now. Many of them did. They just they said, you know what, why can't we take part in this economy? Hell, our ancestors worked it. Now we're free. So why not own slaves? Again, 3,775 compared to millions of white slave owners. See, when the truth about slavery is presented to many white people, they always want to try to throw something in your face. But you did this. It's like when you're arguing with your spouse. You say, well, honey, you did this and it bothered me. Well, yeah, but you did that. Don't deflect. Don't deflect. 400 years of slavery, chattel slavery, cannot compare to 3,775 free blacks owning slaves. Some saw slaveholding as a way to gain acceptance in Southern society, as slave ownership was a symbol of status. Another reason that some free blacks owned slave labor and business purposes. Some free blacks who were craftsmen, such as carpenters, blacksmiths, and tailors, owned enslaved workers who were skilled in skilled trades. A number of free black farmers in places like Louisiana and Mississippi often enslaved labor for agricultural work, much like the white plantation owners. So many of them did. Not many. I'm not use that word. Moral contradictions and racial hierarchy. Some free black slave owners reflected the contradictions of race and class in antebellum America. Some held racist attitudes towards darker-skinned black individuals and sought to distinguish themselves from the enslaved population. Like in Louisiana, for instance, wealthy Creoles of color owned slaves and often saw themselves as distant from enslaved Africans. So, of course, we know that even within within the slave community, because of the dissension and the division that the white man brought upon the slave, saying, if you black, you're bad, lighter is better. So, of course, you grew up in that type of pathology and thinking. Many of the Creoles, who were usually sometimes a lighter hue or spoke French, and some of the enslaved Africans did not, those who were free, yes, they thought they were better. But again, we're talking about 3,775 free black slave owners in comparison to millions of white ones. We're not going to deflect. We also are going to say wrong is wrong. Let's don't get it twisted. All right. Let's talk about the regional differences with the black slave owners. In Louisiana and South Carolina, let's talk there. There was a home to very wealthy Creoles of color who embraced aspects of white Southern aristocracy. In Virginia and North Carolina, many free black people owned enslaved family members out of necessity due to restrictive laws. Okay. And then in Maryland and Delaware, more small scale ownership, often for protective reasons. So the majority of those blacks who did, quote, own slaves, it was for protective reasons, buying back their family. It's not like you had acres and acres of black people working the land while these other black slave drivers are on their horses telling them, work hard, N-word. Come on now. I know it would make you feel better. Misery loves company, white folk. I know it would make you feel better if we could say that, but that's not the case. So what's the conclusion? The fact that some free black people own slaves does complicate the narrative of slavery in the United States. While many own those slaves, while many enslaved people as a means of protection, others participate in economic and social systems of slavery for financial gain. It is what it is. This historical reality highlights the complexity of race, class, and power dynamics in 19th century America. So again, did it happen? Yes. Was it as widespread? Hell to the no, no, no. No, not at all. Not at all. So the reality is enslaving anybody is wrong. But the majority of the free blacks who owned slaves did it as a protection under the laws of the time to buy back their family members who were sold in chattel slavery with the white man. All right. Thank you all for watching. Continue to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when I upload other videos. And again, feel free, if this blesses you, you like my teachings, buy us just a cup of coffee or Venmo me. All right. Talk to you soon.